everybody, welcome back to News from Heaven. This is a show where we take an annotated look via this handy-dandy little pen through the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg and try in there to free our minds, to get life going better than it was. If that sounds like a good goal and you've enjoyed News from Heaven at all, like and subscribe. That's the only way that we know it's worth doing this show and that YouTube knows this show is worth showing to other shows. So if you like it, take that step. It makes a difference to us. The Swedenborg we are going to be weeding our way through today has to do with innocence, true marriage love, and the essence of good. Was that on your wish list for discussion? No? Well, listen, don't click away, because what we're asserting here is that no matter what we're talking about, what we're really doing is trying to get all of us out of the fray, out of the storm. So what's going on in your life right now that's weighing you down? That's like a black cloud over your mind. And it doesn't even always have to be attached to something that's going on. What kind of thought patterns, what regrets, what's going on? Let us know. Write it down in the comments, because I find that the more that we share what's bothering us, the more leverage we have to help each other in the first place, and the more we're able to point out to the flaws in this negative thinking that get us down, because really we should have much more fun than we do in life. And what Swedenborg's material does for me, and hopefully for you as we go through it, is it shows that, wait, there's something much more true and much more alive and much more real and powerful outside that's trying to work its way in and free us there. So let's see if this text can do that for us today. Click the link in the description. That's how you download Heaven and Hell to follow along. Scroll all the way down to number 281. Whoa, what were they talking about last episode? Watch the last episode, you'll find out. Okay, we begin now. I have talked with a lot of angels, that's Swedenborg, about innocence, and have been told that innocence is the inner reality of everything good. Innocence just keeps on unfolding in this series like this flower with all these amazing petals. Not only is it everything else we talked about, it's the inner reality of everything good. That somehow innocence is the existential center of everything good. How would that even work? I don't know, but it's there. And that therefore, anything good is good to the extent that there is innocence within it. So innocence is almost like an element, like this essential element that has to be present within anything good. And how much of it you have in there, however much innocence salt you add, completely determines the taste or the effectiveness. I got to work on my metaphors. Consequently, wisdom is wisdom to the extent that it derives from innocence. And the same is true of love, thoughtfulness, and faith. Wow, because those are like the key pillars of building the mindset that accepts heaven, that frees us from all these sort of dark clouds I was talking about. Innocence is in there. This is why, and this has been said a couple of times in this series, but bears a red highlighter. Nobody can enter heaven unless he or she has innocence. This is why we want to learn about innocence. Because if it's the key to heaven, it might be a nice key to have on your keychain next to that key that you don't know what it does because you forgot. This is what the Lord meant by saying, and this is a quote from the New Testament, "Let the little ones come to me. Do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of the heavens. I tell you in truth, whoever will not accept the kingdom of the heavens like a little child will not enter into it." And isn't that sort of a strange saying? Because isn't the whole thing we want to do when we're little kids is get bigger and get more competent and smart? And really, if you had a kingdom made up of only children, sounds cute, but it would be a nightmare because everybody would be spilling each other's glue and glitter and things. I've seen this happen. So what's God talking about? Well, Swedenborg says, little ones in this passage, as elsewhere in the word, mean the innocent. So you can be as old as people can get, and you can have had as much life and world experience as anybody can get, but you can get the state of mind, which, as we saw in last episode, was a willingness to be led by love or by God. That is who's a little kid in these terms. The state of innocence is described by the Lord in Matthew 6:24-25. I think these brackets are saying really actually 25-34. That's, if you're not familiar with that, that's the pretty famous passage about look at the flowers. Consider the lilies. They're not, and you may know I'm paraphrasing a bit here, they're not too worried about stuff, but they look awesome. So don't worry about it. You're trying to scheme and manipulate your life to go a certain way, or you're worried you'll fall off some kind of existential cliff and you won't have value anymore, or you won't get what you need. But flowers just sit there and soak in the sun. and look how well they do for themselves. You are going to do even better than them. That's what it's saying. But in pure correspondences, Swedenborg is contending that even though that's talking about pretty tangible imagery, that imagery actually is a description of these more fundamental spiritual processes that do get you around some of the wait, how do I just be a flower? It sounds cool, but if you just sat in the same place and drank in the sun, you would need medical attention pretty soon. The reason good is good to the extent that there is innocent in it is that all good comes from the Lord. And innocence is being willing to be led by the Lord. So of all good, all love, all positive accomplishment, everything that we like when we're in a good state of mind comes from the Lord. Why wouldn't you have this? Why wouldn't you be willing to be led by the Lord? Because, as we touched on last time, if you're not led by the Lord, guess what you're going to be led by? By all these worries and these fears and whatever you already wrote in the comments, ding, about what's getting you down. Because that stuff, doesn't it lead you? Isn't it like this, whatever, it's an interpretation of something that happened or something that I wish would happen or something that bothers me about the way life is. Doesn't that just sit there and lead my thoughts? Aren't I a captive to it? There's stuff all the time that I can't stop thinking about, that I want to think about, and eventually it moves you into how you go after life and what decisions you make. All this stuff is trying to lead you, and it's all trying to lead you down into misery and despair. And there's an alternative, which is that God, the source of all love and light and everything that's yellow, wants to pull you up out of there, wants to take you into the place, the state of mind, much like the happiness children are in, that we're all kind of have our birthright in. I have been told that truth cannot be united to good or good to truth except by means of innocence. Is there anything? Innocence is the Swiss Army knife of stuff, of psychological, spiritual capabilities. Is there anything innocence cannot do? Because now innocence can go around and unite truth to good and good to truth. And you might think, that sounds like a bunch of stuff I don't care about. What is uniting truth to good or good to truth? If you hang out with Swedenborg, and it's too late, we're already hanging out with Swedenborg right here, you will find goodness, good, and truth, true. This is the grand duality. You'll hear it called love and wisdom. You'll hear it called in us volition and discernment, but it all charity and faith, whatever particular slant on it. There's two things in life that are trying to get together, and when they get together, that's everything that is blessed and makes life better comes out of that. So to get these two together is the point of spiritual growth and regeneration. It is what we're trying to do in life, and it can only be done, the uniting of these, almost like two atoms entering each other's orbits and bonding together, chemistry, that is only happening by means of innocence. This is also why angels are not angels of heaven unless there is innocence in them. Man, I wish I was an innocence salesman, because this thing is really hyping it up. I bet I could close the deal here. Since heaven is not within anyone until the truth has been united to the good within. So this little yellow barbell I drew over here, by the way, this is the state on a microscopic level that creates heaven, which is heaven is this antidote to the equation. This yellow stuff coming down here, that's heaven. That's what breaks us out of this other mindset, which, is hell. That's Swedenborg's heaven and hell. Hell, of course, having some more nuance, because it also is tied up in us wanting to harm other people and so on, for another episode, actually for many more episodes. So the union of the true and the good is called the heavenly marriage, and the heavenly marriage is heaven. So also we're getting a lot of heaven definitions thrown at us here. We'll have a nice green for heavenly marriage. So these two uniting is called the heavenly marriage, because good and truth love each other and they want to spend their lives together. And when they get together, that's when we're happy. And look at how that then, in a very Swedenborgian way, goes from a minute example to a macro level example. Swedenborg says, I have also been told that true marriage love, the Latin term, I do know this one, Amor Conjugalis. His book on it has been translated Conjugal Love at times. I would say, what's your modern equivalent? Soulmate, maybe? So this would be like this perfect partnership. I have been told that true married love, which he's got a whole chapter on in this book too, derives its origin from innocence, because it comes from the union of the good and true that engages the two minds, the mind of the husband and wife. So what he's saying is, you have two people that are coming together into this like amazing partnership. That's actually sort of an outermost expression of this inner. So let's say, I know I just cut myself off in mid-sentence, but I was drawing. Whenever I'm drawing, the audio quality, the verbal audio quality is going to dip a little bit because I'm just not really a drawer. But look, so let's say we have these two people and they got little heart eyes. It is worth taking time to draw these little heart eyes because I think that's like really sort of the standard bearer of emojis is that little eye that has those hearts in there. So these people are happy. They love each other, right? What's happening here that creates this like soul, like really deep bond is the good and the true are uniting both. Swedenborg, and we're about to see this in the text, both unite sort of inside the minds of each, but then the goodness and truth in each one is uniting together. That's what creates this. It's not that, they had a really great honeymoon and that's what did it. This is like the uniting of the goodness and truth. Somehow this like what we see as like, oh, holding hands and whatever you see in a romantic comedy or a romantic regular movie, this is somehow this outward manifestation of the good and the true coming together. When this union descends, the union of the good and true descends, it takes on the appearance of marriage love, because the spouses, scroll past the notes, like their minds, love each other. This is the source of the childlike and innocent play in marriage love. Is that what we call the art of flirting or something? So, somehow this innocence that's the source of goodness and truth is this reason why you can have this pairing and that you see characteristics of it coming through. Whatever, however it works, it sounds like it's good. Since innocence for heaven's angels, and you may just have, when I said that, those first two words, had a little bit of what we could call Swedenborg fatigue. Because you might be thinking to yourself, especially if you watch the previous two episodes, how many times have we heard the word innocence? Like 47 times. Yeah, and is he going to have another paragraph just talking about this thing that you can't even really see and do? And this, I get it too. All right, we're reading it right now. I'm like, okay, here we go, another paragraph about innocence. But don't do that, because the chances are, if he's putting another paragraph about it, there's something in here that's new. And maybe this fatigue is partially, your dark clouds are weighing in, and they're saying like, don't listen to this next paragraph. It's boring. Why are you even watching this? What if someone comes in the room and sees you watching this weird show in the first place? There's nothing in here. He's just going to talk about fluff and nothing. And the reason those clouds are talking about all that is because they know whenever we dip into the Swedenborg stuff, we come back with all this like good truth that messes up their ability to make us miserable. So they're like, nah, don't get into it. But we are going to get into it. Okay, so it could turn out this is a totally boring paragraph and I hyped it up for nothing, but I would still apply that to the rest of the text. Since innocence for heaven's angels is the very essence of what is good, we can see that the divine good emanating from the Lord is innocence itself, inasmuch as it is this good that flows into angels, moves their deepest natures, and aligns and adapts them to accept all the blessings of heaven. Did that mean anything? Let me try to lay it out here. So let's say you've got God. And usually I draw God as a shiny yellow sun. So let's see if God can have some different colors. What about like purple and some cool blue? Oh, that's nice when they go over to it. This is God. And God is radiating out some love, right? So you're accustomed to think by now, hopefully with Swedenborg, look at God sends stuff out. We think about, God is everywhere. God is affecting us. God can be in our heart or mind. But what is that from God? God is sending out some kind of light beam or some kind of radio wave, right? What Swedenborg is saying is this stuff that's coming out is innocence. So wherever we are on this transmission, we're getting hit by this innocence at some level. And the more we've got our antenna tuned into it, that's translating into impulses and things like that in us. So I don't know if that seems like a big deal, but we just had a definition of the emanation, I think, of what comes out of God. And we're only a couple sentences in here. We'll see what else they have. Right. Also aligns and adapts them to accept all the blessings of heaven. Back to the thing. What's happening in here is we have, according to Swedenborg, the spirit is just as complicated and just as structured as the body. So you think about all the neurons and stuff going on inside a person, all the little cells and mitochondria and RNA and DNA, all that stuff, there's an equivalent in the spirit. And that in the spirit, we got all these little parts. And somehow on a micro level, the inflow of this innocence is putting them all in the right network and in the right interaction pieces. And to me, that's like so exciting. Like you're just getting this huge upgrade that's going in as this innocence flows out. And it says, much the same happens with infants, whose deeper nature are not only formed by the passage of innocence from the Lord, but are also constantly adapted and aligned to accept the good of heavenly love, because the good of innocence acts from deep within, being, as already noted, the very essence of all good. So, for what it's worth, little babies, how they're cute, and everybody, there's this, desire to just stand around and look at, oh, you did something, you raised your arm, that's the coolest thing in the world, is because we are seeing people, that's babies don't have a body that long. That's a grown-up stick person. Babies are like there's a little bundle, can't do anything for themselves. But we're sitting here we just want to see. We want to what do you do? Oh, you grab my finger? That's the coolest thing ever. It's because they are, and they're open in this way, that they are just getting you're very close to the source here. This emanation is hitting them, and we can kind of sense that as it comes out of them. So that is what's going on in this funny paragraph here. This shows that all innocence is from the Lord, which is why the Lord is called the Lamb in the Word. You guys familiar? In the Bible, Jesus is called a lamb, since a lamb means innocence, because it does seem a little bit strange. Oh, I'm God. I can do anything. Okay, God, would you like to be compared to an animal? We have an elephant, which is huge and powerful, or we have a blue whale, the largest animal that ever existed. How would you like to be a polar bear, the largest land carnivore? Everybody would be really afraid. And God says, I would like to be a little fluffy baby sheep. Why? Why is God a lamb? Is that just because God can hey, I can pick anything I want? No, because the lamb is a symbol of innocence, and it sort of didn't make sense to me before. Why is God innocent? What does that make sense? But now that we know from our handy diagram that what comes out of God is innocence, and what that means and what that does for us, the lamb imagery suddenly is a lot more apropos. I don't even know what apropos means. Because innocence is at the very heart, just in case we haven't hyped it up enough, because innocence is at the very heart of all the good of heaven. It also affects minds so strongly that people who feel it, which happens at the approach of an angel of the inmost heaven. Remember, the inmost heaven we saw in last episode is this heaven that is packed with this innocence and partnership. Feel as though they are not under their own control. Mind control, angel takeover, I knew it. They're coming for us. What kind of out of control does an angel's presence bring? They are moved by such a joy. Oh, that's not so bad. So taken out of themselves, so to speak, that it seems as though all the pleasures of the world is nothing by comparison. I speak of this from having experienced it. And that is a tool, because we come back to our mental picture here. How do negative thoughts and feelings gain leverage on us? A lot of it has to do with the threat. Or what I've seen in my mind. A lot of it has to do with the threat of the deprivation of joy. That they are saying to you, to me, to everybody, what you care about, what you think would feel great. Let's say what you care about is, you want to be really good at something and known for that. Well, they're saying, look, you messed this up and now you're never going to be great. Or don't you want to be rich and have all these awesome vacations and stuff? Now you're never going to have that. Don't you want to feel loved and appreciated? Don't you want to be seen as a great mind and you're something, you're never going to get to feel those things. It might not be said that way, but that's the implication. For Swedenborg to come along and say that the joy of being even next to an angel, which is the joy of being in this innocence, which is this willingness to be led by God, who God is love. So this real experience of love is so much better. By comparison, that little stuff is nothing. Suddenly, all the threats of these thoughts and feelings, they got no teeth, because it's like the joy of having a great reputation is nothing compared to the joy of actually living in love and doing things out of love, and the what that will lead us to, in heaven on this earth and in heaven in the future. I find that with that, if suddenly it's like, well, I don't need what all you negative Nancys are or Nelsons are feeding me. I don't care if you're threatening that I'm not going to get to feel kind of joy A or B or C, because there's such better stuff that's universally accessible. Then we got ourselves a real path to freedom there. I speak of this from having experienced it. Not me, but Swedenborg. I've never experienced anything close to that. Anyone who is in the goodness of innocence hey, did you want to know whether or not you are in the goodness of innocence? Here's a quick little easy test. Anyone who is in the goodness of innocence is moved by innocence, and is moved by innocence to the extent that he or she is in good. What does that mean? That there is like when you see a little baby, you think the baby is cute, or maybe you see a baby duck, whatever strikes you as actually innocent, your joy that you feel in seeing that's the good of innocence. However, people, or if you want to know if you're not in that, and it's all right, well, not all of us are, and I'm not always all the time. Sometimes kids are annoying. It just happens. However, people who are not in the good of innocence are not moved by it. Consequently, all the people in hell are absolutely opposed to innocence. And this is not, as we're about to see, little kids, it's more like this. They do not know what innocence is. Their nature is such that the more innocent people are, the more they burn with desire to cause them harm. But not little kids. You wouldn't want to harm little kids. This is why they cannot stand to see little children. Okay, so if you I don't think your kid is that cute, could you please keep them quiet at the restaurant? That's something. But to say I can't stand to look at kids, you might want to get that checked. The moment they do, they're consumed with a vicious desire to inflict harm. And Swedenborg's seeing this in the spiritual world. He would see evil spirits and things, whatever that was like to him, just erupting into a rage whenever innocence was portrayed or shown. This has shown me that our self-image, again, sort of our egoic desire to be above all, and the self-love it fosters, the desire to dominate, are opposed to innocence. For all the people who are in hell are caught up in their own self-image and therefore in self-love. And that's the news from heaven. Did it do anything for you? Right? All this talk about the accessibility of these states of mind, what really matters in life, what doesn't, the fact that there is God and that there is heaven, that there is angels, did any of this make a dent in our network here? Do we find ourselves any closer to the black clouds don't control the weather? The Lord shining in controls the weather. Let me know. Leave a comment. Did your mood change at all throughout this show? Leave a comment. I want to hear about that. Did you have any tools or things you brought out of this or thought of while I was talking and you were off somewhere else, which is totally fine, that you think could help yourself or others? Leave them in the comments. So again, when people come here, it's not just the video they see, but they see all the life experience and wisdom down there, and they can hopefully get tools that'll make them happy, because that's what it's all about. Please like and subscribe to this show. If you want News from Heaven to continue, if we want to keep doing this, you just got to let us know. So we know it's a good use of our time. Please like and subscribe. Leave positive comments. That's how we know. Okay, we're going to be back next week, same time, and hope to be hanging out with you some more then. That's a pretty good wrap up, right? Okay, see ya.